Frida Kahlo has to be one of my favorite artists. I mean, she is an artist who took her pain, who took her personal stories, and she turned them into art. Now, a lot of her art was self-portraits, and you can see that I have created, it's not a self-portrait, but it is a little portrait of Frida Kahlo right here, and it is teeny, teeny, tiny, but it didn't start out that way because it actually started, it's shrink plastic. It was much bigger, twice the size, so I was easily able to draw in all the detail. Now, you could do your own sort of interpreted self-portraits, or you can do, let's say, some text about who you are. You're a mom, or you want to declare that you're like a boss, or you can see these two necklaces that I finished putting together, which again, maybe you want to declare you're an artist or just your name. Now, this is super duper easy to do. So the key again is we're going to draw big because we're starting with some shrink plastic. Now, I chose to start with some red shrink plastic because that's just a color that announces who you are, right? So I'm gonna start with that, and then you wanna make sure that you're using markers that are permanent on a shiny surface, because not everything is. And then just in your normal handwriting, this is not calligraphy, it is not brush lettering. I'm just using the fat chisel tip here to write out my name, and I'm gonna add a flourish right there, and then add in my little E. And you can see how easy that was. Now, instead of a dot, what I'm actually gonna do is switch over to the smaller tip on the pen, and I'm gonna go ahead and start to sketch in a little flower. So it starts as a heart, and you can see that easily looks like it's a dot, and then I just draw another heart. The thing about drawing is that most complicated shapes, if you think for a moment, instead of about drawing, but about breaking them down to basic shapes, these are just loops. Everybody can draw a heart and everybody can draw loops. So that's all that I'm doing here. I'm just doing loop, 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 and then I'm pretending as I get around here that it's continuing behind here. So I can just add the little loops wherever I want. And I'm just continuing around to bulk out my flower. Now, if flowers aren't your thing, you do not have to do flowers, because just like Frida Kahlo, what you're making should declare something about who you are. So other things are, I happen to love eyes. I think eyes are the window to the soul. I think they tell you secrets about things. So I think they tell you a lot about a person. Now, an eye is just a simple shape. We can all draw this. We're not worried about being artists. And then a half circle inside, a smaller half circle inside that, and then actually the curve around here is kind of creating the eyelid. I am gonna color in the whites of the eyes. As they say, don't shoot until you see the whites of the eyes. But don't worry about making it smooth or perfect. This is just art that we're having fun with. Then I like a little bit of embellishment, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some little doodles. Now, an echo is your best friend when it comes to doodling. An echo is just what it sounds like. Echo. It echoes the shape of the scallop, and it just makes the details look great. So whenever you don't know what to doodle, I would suggest an echo. It really looks great. So I'm now gonna color this in with a variety of other pens. Now, I picked some pens that, again, are gonna be okay on a slick surface. And not only are they gonna be okay on a slick surface, but they're gonna dry dimensionally. So this pen is gonna dry in a kind of clear, glossy, dimensional way. And then I have one that is gonna dry in a more opaque, but still dimensional way. So I'm gonna color in the center of that, just like so. And you can have fun coordinating the eye color. And don't forget, you can still go back to using just your regular markers. This is just about having fun, taking time. You could totally do this for, you know, birthday party, girls' night out, whatever you wanted to do. So once it is all colored in, it's gonna look a little something like this. And you can see I took my time. There's that glossy ink. In here is some of the matte ink. You can even see that I used a white opaque pen, right, to add a little detail. Now, really important, if you want this to be a necklace, there are 2 holes punched right here, but don't worry, if you forget, you could always drill the shrink plastic after it's shrunk. So now, I'm moving over to just a Teflon sheet, just something to protect my surface, and I don't want to touch it with my hands, so I have this just bamboo skewer out of the kitchen section. And I'm gonna go ahead now and gently heat this. This is just a heat gun that you usually use for embossing or something like that. This is not like a commercial heat gun that's gonna be super, super crazy hot, because you don't want to get this going too fast. You wanna be gentle with it. And as it starts to go, you'll see that it will start to shrink around. Now, all of those details that I created are gonna look really great once they start to shrink down. It's gonna be super exciting. Now, don't worry as it curls, even if it curls around your skewer, you're just gonna keep the heat on it, keep it going. If it starts to go, you just sort of manipulate it and move it around and keep the heat on it. Use the skewer to keep it in place so it doesn't go flying across the room. Let it shrink all the way down, and it will slowly, as it reaches its final shrunk size, it will slowly flatten out. And sometimes it needs a little bit of encouraging, so just be careful. It is hot, and make sure that you just flatten it out a little. There you can see, well, it's still warm. It's very pliable, but hot, so be careful. And if you want it to flatten out even more, just go ahead and hit it with heat one more time. Use your skewer to help you. And then that, while it's hot, is gonna go ahead and flatten out. You can also use something nice and cool, like a spatula or something like that, but don't ever touch metal directly to it. That's really important. But there you go. This is gonna be ready. Sometimes I like to just take the Teflon mat, flip it over, squish it, and then, boom, it's nice and flat. Now, if you didn't have a heating gun or an embossing gun, you could obviously just put it in a toaster oven, and you can see those little holes are perfect. All I have to do is attach my jewelry findings, and if we look at the finished one, what a great way to be inspired by Frida Kahlo and declare exactly who you are.